The moments of happiness we enjoy catch us by surprise. We don't grab hold of them, they grab hold of us. Ashley Montague. It's been more than 25 years since I returned to my hometown. 26 years, 5 months, and 12 days to be exact. I left town a broken man at the ripe old age of 26. It was the day after I found out that my wife, with whom I had been married for 3 years, was pregnant with her first child. More accurately, her boss's child. When she told me she was pregnant, I knew right away that it wasn't my child, even though she didn't try very hard to hide it. We were young and poor. The economy was tough, so I took a temporary job on a river barge that traveled up and down the Mississippi. It was great money for a young man, but I had to be away for 6 to 8 weeks. It ended up being 9. We both decided it was worth it because I was making more in 2 months than I had in 4 at my old job. We were young and in love. We could have made it work. My wife lasted about 2 weeks, and then she started sleeping with her boss, David Hollister. He owned an insurance company, and she was one of 3 administrative assistants. As it turned out, she was the 3rd one he had slept with. He had good connections in our small town, so even when she made a scene, he just smiled. "What are you going to do, Debbie? Ruin my life? Sue me? I'm not married. The local judge is my brother-in-law, and you don't have a penny to hire a lawyer." The next day, when he fired her, he gave her $1,000 as severance pay. When I returned to town 2 weeks later, she was working as a waitress at a local cafe, serving breakfast and lunch. When she told me this story, she was so remorseful that it was pitiful. She apologized for 15 minutes, then insisted that we use my recently acquired $12,500 to sue the bastard. "Tom, we can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I was just lonely, blah, blah, blah." She babbled on and on while I stood there silently and stoically. She admitted that it didn't mean anything, meant that she had slept with him about 20 times while I was away. I think she was genuinely shocked when she fell silent, and I laughed bitterly in her face. Turning away, I spent the next hour in silence, did a couple of loads of laundry, then packed my things and left for good. In the late 90s, cell phones were a luxury, so she couldn't find me. I never saw her again or heard from her. Yes, I was angry, hurt, humiliated, and broken. I would have loved to figure out how to get revenge on that bitch and that bastard, but as a young man with very little experience, I didn't know how or what to do. My parents were dead. I had a sister in Chicago, so there was nothing keeping me in beautiful Hannibal, Missouri. I got another job on a barge, bought a used Ford F-150 pickup truck, and headed west. For the next 20 years, I struggled to get by. I eventually landed a job as an accountant at a small title company in Denver, where I worked for 3 years and earned a degree in finance. Being single, or at least living like a bachelor, I had a lot of time to study and take classes, so I earned my degree in just over 2 years. I had no idea if Debbie would divorce me or when. I'm sure she did, but I never found out. With a few letters after my name and a few dollars in my pocket, I continued west, this time settling in Bend, Oregon. I didn't know anyone there, but I had read about the place, and it seemed like a great place to start over. Golf and mountain biking in the summer, skiing in the winter, it was perfect for me. I was also sure that there wasn't much migration from Hannibal to Bend, so I could really start my life from scratch. I opened a small brokerage firm, and within 10 years I had 3 junior partners and several administrative staff. I was making almost $200,000 a year, and my life was going great. I made good friends and dated girls as often as I wanted. With Debbie's betrayal still fresh in my mind, I didn't even think about marriage. When colleagues asked why I didn't want a wife and children, I never told them the whole story. I just shrugged and said something like, "It's not for me." Over the years, I still thought about Deb from time to time. It was impossible not to. We had dated for 2 years and been married for 3. For most of those 5 years, I thought I had found the woman I would spend the rest of my life with. When I found out she had cheated on me with her boss and was carrying his child, it was more than a shock. I didn't want those painful memories to make me bitter, so every day I tried to focus on the best in the world and do everything in my power to be a good and generous person to those around me. So, despite my success and leaving the past behind, I am now flying Delta from Portland to St. Louis, and then on a small plane to Hannibal. Why? It turns out I have a long-lost uncle on my mother's side who died and left me a small fortune. Somehow, his lawyer tracked me down in Bend. We discussed it over the phone, and although I was inclined to just let him handle everything remotely, I decided why not go back to the old house one more time. So, at 51, a completely different person, I set out on a journey down memory lane. I'm still a bit stingy, but since I was about to inherit $40,000, I decided to fly first class. When I settled into my seat, a charming young woman of about 25 sat down next to me. Her name was Tabitha, and she was flying to visit friends in Bender. The trip was a gift from her mother for her 25th birthday. By the time we flew over Nebraska, we were talking like old friends. Her mother was single when she was born, but married a local high school teacher when she was about 2 years old. Unfortunately, he molested several underage female students and was not only fired, but also ended up in prison. When Tabitha was 12, her mother married a local businessman. They lived in a beautiful house until Tabitha went to college in Missouri. In her junior year, her mother caught Mike with his secretary, and that ended the second marriage. At that point, her mother decided to remain single. As we drank wine and chatted, she told me that she had earned her accounting degree and was working in St. Louis. She saw her mother at least once a month. It was clear that she loved her mother, but also thought she was a little foolish. Obviously, she didn't know how to choose men, and her relationships hadn't helped Tabitha learn how to build loving and stable relationships. During our conversation, I noticed something intriguing in her eyes, but I couldn't figure out what it was, so I didn't dwell on it. She asked me a few questions about my life, and I told her everything except for my early marriage and divorce. I just didn't want to talk about that with anyone, especially a young woman who was almost half my age and whom I had just met on a plane. She seemed satisfied with what I told her and didn't press me to continue the conversation. By the time we were approaching Kansas City in the last hour of the flight, I also realized that young Tabitha had issues with her father. We only had a couple of glasses of wine, but she leaned into me as we talked, more than was appropriate, and it was clear she was flirting. When she asked why I didn't have a wedding ring, she looked at me as if to ask if I was interested. To be honest, I liked that a young woman was flirting with me. I'm in good shape, fit, and fairly outgoing, but no 20-year-old girl is going to be interested in a man who could be her father. Right? Tabitha was now openly touching my hand and said she had a couple more days before she had to go back to work. She asked if I wanted her to keep me company on the trip to Hannibal. She could surprise her mother and visit her, and show me how her hometown had changed. There was a clear sexual undertone to her offer. One of my favorite sayings is, "I may be ugly, but I'm not stupid." When we landed, I bought Tabitha a ticket from St. Louis to Hannibal. The flight was not full, so I got her a seat next to me. There was no first class on this small plane, but the flight was only 40 minutes. As soon as the plane took off, the lights dimmed. When you fly west to east, you fly into the night, so by the time we took off, it was late and dark. And then Tabitha leaned over and kissed me. It wasn't a passionate kiss, but it was hot. I took her hand in mine and whispered, "If you behave like that, I'll punish you when we get home, young lady." I could feel her burning when she whispered back, "I hope you do." We landed 20 minutes later. I rented a beautiful house overlooking the Mississippi, not far from the city. It was too late to call her mother, and neither of us was in the mood to part. Tabitha stayed the night at my place, and I went to meet with my lawyer. We both agreed that meeting her mother was not a priority. Tabitha didn't think her mother would be furious to see that her daughter had decided to have an affair with a much older man, but she also knew it was better to be cautious. She broke off the kiss and asked for some time to take a shower. We had almost 7 hours to drive, so I agreed that was a good idea. I offered to wash her back, but she smiled slyly at me and said I would have to be patient while she got ready to please Daddy. Damn, who was this young coquette, and would I be able to survive the night with her? Tabitha did not disappoint. "What should Daddy do to you?" She started walking toward me, swaying seductively. "Bad girls deserve to be punished, Daddy," she replied, sliding down my knees. When we woke up, we had sex in the shower, then got dressed and went to breakfast. It was Saturday, and she knew her mom wasn't working, so she decided to call her after breakfast. Eric Hodges, the lawyer representing my uncle, agreed to meet with me at 10 a.m. on Saturday, as our case would only take about an hour, and he would be paid $5,000 from the inheritance to complete it. Tabitha and I agreed to meet later for drinks and dinner. She told my mother she was going on a date, but didn't tell her about our situation. She gave me the name of a restaurant where we could meet and offered to make a reservation, as it would be crowded. Then we were going to go home for the night, and in the morning I was going to fly to the airport, and she would continue her visit with my mother. I told her I would buy her a ticket back to St. Louis, but she thought her mom would want to take Monday off and drive her home. We had a plan. As we were leaving, Tabitha stood up and kissed me gently on the lips. "I can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy," she whispered. Damn, I thought. Good thing it's only for the weekend or I'd never get back to Bend. I used my GPS to find Hodges' office. It was downtown, in an area with shops and restaurants. I found a parking spot just around the corner and walked into his office at exactly 10 a.m. He was waiting for me with a smile and shook my hand. We chatted for a few minutes about life. When he asked about my family, I told him that I had lived here many years ago. I didn't go into any details about my past other than what was necessary. When we got down to business, everything turned out to be relatively simple. My uncle's will allowed us to avoid the probate process. Hodges took my driver's license and made several copies for his files and records. Then he read the will aloud. When we were done, he handed me a money order for $40,765. After a few final pleasantries, I left the house and headed for my car. As I turned the corner, I looked up and saw Tabitha a block away with an elderly woman who must have been her mother. They were talking and giggling, oblivious to their surroundings, so they hadn't noticed me yet. I froze. I was looking at my ex-wife, Debbie. I hadn't seen her in 25 years, and she looked older, but I would have recognized her anywhere. Suddenly, I realized why Tabitha had caught my eye. Her eyes were exactly like her mother's. They crossed the street about half a block away from me, still unaware of me, and entered a clothing boutique. Damn it! I slept with my ex-wife's daughter. All the emotions from those long-ago years came flooding back. I broke out in a cold sweat, my hands shaking. The creature who had betrayed my deepest love, who had robbed me of the joy of life with a real partner, was in a damn clothing store across the street, completely unaware of my presence. The pain was unbearable. Then suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, I started to laugh quietly. I remembered all the moments I had spent in agony thinking about how to punish that bitch. A year after moving to Bend, I decided to let it go. I knew I would never have a chance to get revenge. Whatever happened to that flighty girl, it would happen without my involvement. I wasn't going to let her betrayal completely destroy me. I may have been deeply traumatized, but I was okay, even if I had to give up the idea of revenge. The more I thought about it, the more I laughed. The few people on the street probably wondered why I was laughing so loudly. When I leaned against the car, still laughing, I realized that my laughter wasn't laughter of relief, but laughter of malice. I realized that I wasn't going to be chivalrous or kind to Debbie. I wasn't going to leave things as they were. I was going to enjoy this moment. Perhaps a more mature man would have reacted differently. A real nice guy would probably have decided that enough time had passed and forgotten about it. But not me. I realized that I wanted a little revenge, and that this was my moment. I didn't want to hurt Tabitha, but perhaps that was unavoidable. I would try not to be cruel to her. She couldn't blame herself for who she was born to be. However, I was going to enjoy causing my ex a little pain. I crossed the street and waited about 4 houses away from the clothing store. When they reappeared, I headed toward them. The next 5 minutes would never make it into a Hallmark movie, but God, was it fun. "Tabitha, hi Tabitha," I called, waving my hand. I saw her look up, a little confused. We had agreed that I didn't need to meet her mom. Her expression was a mixture of surprise and slight alarm. At first, Debbie looked at me the way anyone would look at a stranger who was clearly a friend of her daughter's. When I approached them with a smile, Debbie's eyes went from curiosity to confusion to recognition to shock in about 10 seconds. She put her hand over her mouth and exclaimed, "Oh my God!" "Tom?" Now it was Tabitha's turn to be confused. "Mom, do you know this man?" Before she could say a word, I said, "Hi, Debbie. Long time no see." Oh, that felt good. "Tom, what are you doing here? I mean, why are you here and how do you know my daughter?" "Mom, you know Tom? Tom, you know my mom? How is this possible? What's going on here?" They were both confused. "Well, ladies, let me explain. Tabitha, I'll start with you. 5 minutes ago, I didn't know that my fickle, lying ex-wife was your mother. We didn't discuss this on the plane last night, but I was married here many, many years ago. Debbie, interrupt me if you want to add anything." "No? Okay. I'll continue. You see, Tabitha, your mother was my first and only love. We were young and poor, but we loved each other. To make ends meet, I took a job on a river barge and was away for 9 weeks. Before I left, we both agreed that it would be hard, but we loved each other and would get through it. Every day on that barge for 2 months, all I could think about was my Debbie and getting back to her. I was so happy when I got paid and headed home. Finally, we could start our life together. Imagine my surprise when my loving, caring wife who had promised me fidelity told me she was pregnant by another man. As we talked, I realized she had waited only 2 weeks before sleeping with her boss, your father, David Hollister." Both women gasped. "Oh," I continued. "Debbie, you never told your daughter about her real father? Well, that's too bad. Maybe that's why she has issues with her father, which are clearly evident when she's having sex." I thought Debbie was going to faint. "Anyway, honey, your mother ruined me and our future by spending several weeks in bed with her boss. In the end, he gave her $1,000 to leave and keep her mouth shut, which she obviously didn't do. Technically, I guess that makes her a slut, not a prostitute. I left town with a broken heart, and it took me almost 5 years to get back on my feet and start a new life. So, I guess that answers your question. Now, Debbie, to your questions. I came back to town because I had an uncle I never knew, and he died leaving me a small inheritance. I decided to come back and see my hometown one last time before finishing up with attorney Eric Hodges. I didn't know you were still living here, and I wasn't going to look for you. Why would I want to reunite with a selfish bitch who didn't give a damn about me or my love? Anyway, on the plane, I sat next to a beautiful young woman who introduced herself as Tabitha. We chatted over a glass of wine and enjoyed getting to know each other. She didn't tell me your name, and I had no idea who she really was. However, as I said, we had a great time and really liked each other. Again, I think that may be partly because she's still looking for a loving father. So last night we flew to Hannibal, and she spent the night having incredible sex with me. I mean, it was truly epic. I don't remember ever making love with such passion and enthusiasm." Tabitha blushed and was now clearly angry. Debbie was humiliated, and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I was almost done. I looked at Tabitha. "Tabitha, I'm sorry you're hurt and angry right now, and I don't blame you. But you have no idea what real pain is. It turns out I betrayed you a little. I could have seen your promiscuous mother turned around and walked away. But I'm just not that good of a guy, and in many ways that's thanks to the bitch you call your mother. Know that I will never speak of this again, and I don't hold any ill will toward you. I hope you have a good life, and if you ever find yourself in Bend and need a friend, I'll be there. No strings attached. You are a beautiful young woman, and I'm sorry you've been through this. I think your answer will be a resounding no, but I would still like to have dinner with you tonight, with no physical expectations. Tabitha's face softened a little. Debbie, your tears and pain are healing me. I thought I would never have a chance to show you how much you hurt me. I could never have come up with a plan like this. But now that I'm here, I want you to know that I see the horror in your eyes. Now you understand, at least a little, what you did to me. I can see it in your face, and I know it hurts like hell. Your little girl is a wonderful young woman, and she's damn good in bed. I hope the image of me taking her several times last night will remain in your memory forever. Goodbye, girl. Later that day, my phone rang. Dad, are you still going to have dinner with me?